Tim Burton. During quarantine, I took the liberty to rewatch every single Tim Burton movie that he's ever made. Personally, for me, Tim Burton is one of my top 5 favorite directors. I haven't seen a movie of his in quite some time, so one day I was just feeling a little bit, down in the dumps, and I remember, hey, Tim Burton made really good movies. Tim Burton specializes in the whimsical menace of the macabre and scary, and it's evident in all of his movies, whether it's stop motion or if it's live action, that it is made by Tim Burton. He uses a lot of trademarks in his movies with the color palette being a little bit darker than most movies. Also, something that has to be pointed out is that Tim Burton uses one single composer for almost all of his movies, which is Danny Elfman, a personal favorite of mine. He has made almost all Tim Burton movies, and he also has made Spider-Man, the Raimi trilogy, Tobey Maguire. I have chosen 10 movies that I want to talk about that are my personal favorite. Now, without further ado, these are my top 10 favorite Tim Burton movies.
See this one shine, how he smiles in the light, my friend, my faithful friend. Speak to me, friend, whisper, I'll listen. I know, you've been locked out of sight all these years, like me, my friend.
So number 10, we have Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. The thing I have to point out about this one is that this is a musical. It is a Broadway adaptation from a Broadway show. So they break into song and dance quite a lot in this movie, and I'm not quite a fan of that. Like, I didn't like Les Mis that much, and this is kind of like Les Mis, just a little bit cooler. Johnny Depp plays Sweeney Todd, and Helena Bonham Carter plays his partner. Alan Rickman, rest in peace, plays the main villain in the story. And the acting is pretty well done on each other part. That's a very solid Johnny Depp role. Now, for this story, I didn't like it that much. I have some problems with it. It was very cool when Johnny Depp started killing a bunch of dudes with his razor, and Helena Bonham Carter, just helping him. I feel like the ending left a lot of loose ends that needed to be solved, and I didn't like the ending that much. The soundtrack is very important for a movie like Sweeney Todd, because, again, like I said, it's a musical, so Danny Elfman really made all of the songs, and they adapted some of the songs from the Broadway play into this movie, and they also made 2 new songs, which are pretty good. I feel like the musical elements of this movie are the best parts of the movie. That's, for me, is a solid 10 out of 10, so I feel like the music just adds a whole other element. But without the music, this movie would be very, very mediocre, and it would not have made this list. Okay, now, on to the next one.
Well, I believe they're going to treat us to a little song. It is quite a special occasion, of course. They haven't had a fresh audience in many a movie.
Augustus Gloop, the great bakery nincompoop. Augustus Gloop, so big and vile, so greedy, foul, and infantile.
Alright, so for number 9, we have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This movie is a guilty pleasure of mine. I know not many people like this movie. I can do a whole nother video on comparing the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to the one Tim Burton made, but I'm not gonna do that. This is a Tim Burton video. First and foremost, I want to talk about the songs used, the music used in this movie. It's fucking phenomenal. I love it so much. Fun little fact for y'all. The original songs used in the Roald Dahl book are used in the Tim Burton movies, but for the Gene Wilder version, those songs are completely original. So that's just a quick little fun fact. I feel like Danny Elfman made a great improvement to the songs that Roald Dahl wrote, and of course he modernized them a lot. Every time a kid dies, the song made totally represents the kid, and I feel like Danny Elfman really made a great like song for each character, and that is really hard to do. My main concern for this movie is that Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka is not that good. For me personally, I like Gene Wilder better. I'm not a fan of the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka, to be honest. I don't like it that much. It's just too exaggerated for my liking. Freddie Highmore plays a young Charlie Bucket in this movie, and I feel like he did a very good acting job on portraying that he was just a normal ass kid that just was a little bit poor. The other kids did very well in this role too. Like for example, like Veruca Salt's actress, who is Julia Winter, played a really good like spoiled brat, and it really made you hate her, but that's the point of her character, and her actors really displayed that in the movie. We all know the story about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Each kid gets a golden ticket. They go to the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and they go through each section of the factory, and every section a kid dies or like gets eliminated. It's basically just torture. This movie is just a nostalgia trip for me. I just love it. It's a guilty pleasure. I watched it when I was like 9, 10, and it's still a great movie to this day. When I rewatched it, it's just great. For a kid, I definitely recommend it, but for an adult, later on, it's not that good, but it's still very enjoyable.
Sorry, boy. You're alive! Sparky! You're alive! I can't believe it! You're alive!
Alright, up next we have Frankenweenie. We all had a dog when we were growing up. We all took care of that dog, and sadly, eventually, the dog dies. And it's very sad, but it teaches a child about death and life, and that everything has its end. The story for me is very nice. I loved it. The story is just about a kid and his dog gets run over by a car, and he can't let go of his dog, so he essentially just reanimates him Frankenstein style, and eventually like the other animals start acting weird around this dog, and because the animals are acting weird, the neighbors start acting weird as well, and it's just a cute little story about him and Frankenweenie trying to like solve each problem they create, and it's just a very nice story, very mellow. Now the casting isn't very good for this one. I feel like you could have had bigger names for this one because it is Tim Burton. The biggest name in this movie being Winona Ryder, of course, being Elsa Van Helsing. And she did a good voice acting performance, but I really much like her live action performances. The other cast members did a very good voice acting for this movie, though I feel like it could have done a little bit better. I'm not complaining. It's still a very okay job. I feel like the last animation that came out before Frankenweenie was A Corpse Bride, so I was very excited that Tim Burton was coming back with a stop motion. The animation is very Tim Burton-esque. There is the whole story is in black and white. Now I would have preferred it with color, but I get that would have taken away from the story. But because it's in black and white, there is no color. So like I feel that the other animations Tim Burton has done has been a lot better than Frankenweenie. Though I'm still very happy that this is a Tim Burton animation because I love Tim Burton's like drawings and stuff like that. It's just very unique. As an adult, you can also take away a very nice story about life and death. It's just a good movie for all ages and a very nice story.
They say when you meet the love of your life, time stops. And that's true.
Now, up next, we have Big Fish. This movie is not that well known, to be honest. I saw it for my first time when I was rewatching all the Tim Burton movies. I didn't even know this was a Tim Burton movie, yet it's still a very, very good movie. Now, the casting and the acting for me in this movie was on point. I loved every minute of it. Ewan McGregor plays the main character, as well as Helena Bonham Carter shows up in this movie too. Billy Crudup also shows up in this one, he plays Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen, I think. Jessica Lange also shows up in this, and she's an American Horror Story. I love her in that. But like for me, the actor who mainly stole the show was Ewan McGregor. He does a great performance as Edward Bloom in this movie, and it's just very good. Now the story is a little bit confusing because it's told in flashbacks, and like Edward Bloom is in his deathbed, and his kid doesn't really connect with him in a certain way, because Edward Bloom, the main character, always told stories that weren't exactly real, and his son doesn't know what's real or what's fake in his dad's life. So it's just very, very convoluted and very confusing. But once you get toward the end, it all starts to make sense that his dad did lie. Just because he didn't want his son to think he was boring, he told all his stories. So it's just a nice story about a father loving his son and a son coming to terms with his father's death. Now, the music isn't that well made in this movie. Like, I don't take much away from the music in this movie. Like, it's very minimal. You could totally replace Danny Elfman with someone else and you wouldn't notice. This soundtrack isn't that good. Now, Big Fish is still a very good story with amazing acting, and the music isn't that bad. People can take a lot away from this movie, so I definitely recommend it.
Listen. Maybe we can cut a deal.
Jack is dead, my friend. You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
Up next, we have the first Tim Burton Batman movie, starring Michael Keaton as Batman and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. This is a very, very good Batman movie, and for me, it's top 5 Batman movies of all time. Michael Keaton delivers an extraordinary performance as Batman, and he just fits the role very well for Tim Burton. Now, Jack Nicholson, though we've seen him act in The Shining like a bit of a madman, so I think that's why he was chosen as a Joker for this movie. Jack Nicholson doesn't do it for me as a Joker. He is very ridiculous and he just acts like a clown, which I know he is, but it's just not the Joker for me. I know very recently we had Joaquin Phoenix play the Joker, and for me that is a stellar performance, but Jack Nicholson, while he does deliver a great performance, it just doesn't do it for me. It's not that good. Billy D. Williams, who plays Apollo Creed in Rockies 1, 2, 3, and 4, he plays Two-Face, and it's just very forgettable. I don't like him that much, and it's alright. Now, of course, the story is about the Joker trying to take over Gotham City, and Batman has to stop him. It's a Batman movie. Like, I'm not going to complain, but that's what Batman is. This is a very to-the-point Batman movie, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's about detective work, it's about stopping the Joker, and it's just about allies helping each other. It's very nice. Now, I do think that Danny Elfman made the best Batman theme ever. This theme for Batman is fucking phenomenal. I love it. It's just great. It captures everything Batman is supposed to be for Tim Burton. It's fantastic, and of course Danny Elfman does a great job once again. Well, this is not my favorite Batman movie. I still love it. It's just fun for every age. Children can watch this movie, and adults can watch this movie and still find something enjoyable in it, which I think is very good if a movie can do that. So yeah, that's Batman.
pardon my enthusiasm.
I like your enthusiasm.
Now, up next, we have The Corpse Bride. This movie is one of my favorite animated movies. It's just so good. Tim Burton really got inspired with his old artwork while doing this movie, so you can really see every Tim Burton trademark done in this animation. Like, you look at this animation and you're like, yes, this is Tim Burton. This is what it's supposed to be. Now, the story is fantastic. I love the story. That's a very cool play on the land of the living being more dead than the land of the dead, which are obviously more alive. Now, of course, this is done through color. For example, like the land of the living is pretty much just black and white, and the land of the dead is just all animated and with color, and they just break into song and dance all the time. And it's just great. The love story is pretty good. I really liked it, with the whole Emily and Victor. That Emily falls in love with Victor, but Victor accidentally marries Emily in the process, and it's just really good. Now, I think what sold it for me in this movie is the animation. There is this one scene where Victor and Emily are playing a piano duet, and it's just animated phenomenally. I played it a few minutes ago. It's just so good. Of course, Danny Elfman did this movie soundtrack, and I think Victor's piano solo and Victor and Emily's piano duet is just one of the best piano pieces I've ever heard. And of course, Danny Elfman does the other music in this movie phenomenally. It fits the tone of the movie so well. And of course, as well, because Danny Elfman and Tim Burton have been working for so long, they know each other so well, that Tim Burton just knows what to do for a Tim Burton movie. He is the master of whimsical menace. Now, I think the main concern with me for this movie is the voice acting. It's very awkward at some points, especially Johnny Depp. He doesn't deliver for me as a voice actor. I've seen him in Rango, and I think that's better than this one, because there's some times where I can barely hear Johnny Depp, and when he has to talk to like Helena Bonham Carter's character Emily, it's just kind of awkward. Helena Bonham Carter doesn't do that well either, but then again, that gets pushed down by the amazing soundtrack and visuals of this movie. This is phenomenal. I love the movie. For me, it comes in 5th, but it's one of my favorite animated movies ever made.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Now, up next, we have Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is one of those movies I watched when I was a kid and I fucking loved it, but then I kind of forgot that it even existed up until very, very, very recently. The story of this is, it's very slow paced at the beginning. We have this family who dies, but they get brought back and they haunt their old house. But a new family moves into their house and they have to spook them to get them out, but they're not really good at that because they were nice people. I had a huge crush on Winona Ryder in this movie. She plays one of the first like goth girls ever, and she does genuinely give a great performance. Beetlejuice and her are like yin and yang. They complement each other very well. Winona being the least extreme and Beetlejuice being the most extreme. It's a crime if I don't talk about Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. He was the best part of this movie. This movie is so enjoyable because of him. Every time he's on screen, he makes everybody laugh, and he just steals the show completely. This movie would not be the same without him. Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin play the Maitlands, and they're pretty cool characters. They're the family who dies. They're really not that flushed out or well made, but they're still pretty good, and they add a lot to the story. It is centered around them. Now, the music for this movie is one of my favorites. I love the theme to Beetlejuice. Danny Elfman went all out for this theme, I feel like. This is phenomenal. You can hear it in the background. It's just full-on orchestra orgasm. I think Tim Burton was very smart to put the theme song right at the beginning because it grabs the viewers very well, and you're like, whoa, what is this? Because the music is just so catchy and so good, and it fits the movie very well. It is very great, like, world building, but it is kind of slow, and I saw myself getting bored at some parts. but it's still very good, especially at the end of the climax. It's so good, but especially just because of Michael Keaton's acting. The movie just wouldn't be the same without him. Tim Burton delivers. He delivers amazingly in this movie. He does a lot of his trademarks as well, and with the stripes and all that. It's just, it's great. I love this movie to death, and yeah, Michael Keaton does give one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Things change. What do you want? Ah, the direct approach. I admire that in a man with a mask. You don't really think you'll win, do you? Things change.
Meow.
Now, up next we have Batman Returns, the second Tim Burton Batman movie, and my second favorite Batman movie of all time. Now, for me, this is just 10 times better than the first one. I just fucking adore this movie. Batman Returns is literally one of the best Batman movies ever made. Of course, Michael Keaton returns as Batman, what's not to love, but I think what sold it for me is Danny DeVito as the Penguin. This is my favorite role he has ever played in. He fits the Penguin scarily well. Like, I feel like Danny DeVito was born to be a Penguin, and that's not like because of his size or whatever, but I feel like he does deliver a great performance. Another phenomenal performance in this movie is Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. She acts exactly how I think Catwoman should act. She is, for me, the Catwoman. I can't see anyone else playing Catwoman. That's why I didn't like Anne Hathaway that much, but again, that's just me being picky. I just love Michelle Pfeiffer's performance, and she's great. She is the best Catwoman and Selena Kyle I've ever seen. Christopher Walken is Mr. Shrek in this movie, and while I do like Christopher Walken in a lot of other stuff like Deer Hunter, I don't like him that much in this movie. He plays kind of a forgettable character, but it's still Christopher Walken. Like, I'm not going to complain. Now, the story for this movie is that the Penguin teams up with Max Schreck to just take over Gotham, and Batman decides to stop them, and Selena Kyle also tries to stop Shrek because he tried to kill her, and eventually that's how she becomes Catwoman. I just like this story for this movie is way better than the other one because it has more elements going into it, and the acting is just better in my opinion. It's a Batman story. I'm not going to complain. I love Batman. He's one of my favorite superheroes, and they have the Penguin Catwoman in this movie. So like they all complement each other so well, and I love the characters. That's why I love this movie so much. So yeah, it's just an amazing Batman story. If you like Batman, I can't recommend this movie enough. Catwoman is amazing. The Penguin is one of the best Batman villains we've ever seen on screen, and Michael Keaton, still being my second favorite Batman ever, he does a great performance as he did in the first one. So I'd recommend this to you if you're a huge Batman fan, and even though if you don't like Batman, still watch it because it has some Tim Burton elements that are just suitable for all ages. So yeah, fantastic movie. Batman rules.
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? There's white things in the air. What's this? I can't believe my eyes. I must be dreaming. Wake up, Jack. This isn't fair. What's this? What's this? What's this? There's something very wrong. What's this? There's people singing songs. What's this? The streets are lined with little creatures laughing. Everybody seems so happy. Have I possibly gone daffy? What is this? What's this? There's children throwing snowballs instead of throwing heads. They're busy building toys and absolutely no one's dead. There's frost in every window. Oh, I can't believe my eyes. And in my bones I feel the warmth that's coming from inside. Oh, look.
Now, The Night Before Christmas has everything I've ever wanted from an animated movie and a Christmas movie. The concept is just fucking mind-blowing, man. Like, how can you come up with this shit? Like, you have different, like, towns that represent holidays, like Halloween Town and Christmas Town, and it's just so good. It's like almost like a civil war, almost like the Halloween town decides to kidnap Santa Claus and ruin Christmas Town because they're evil and all that. It's just a great concept and a great story. All the characters are fucking phenomenal. Like, you have the Boogeyman, who's the main villain, and Jack Skellington, who is also a villain, but then he becomes good toward the end, which is, his character development is great. Sally is just a great character in general. She's like an anchor for Jack to become more and more good towards the end, and it's their love for each other that ultimately changes Jack and makes him save Christmas. Now we have the man himself, Danny Elfman, who's playing Jack Skellington. Of course, we have the main composer for Tim Burton movies finally get a role in his movie, and he's the main character, of course. Now, speaking of Danny Elfman, he does a phenomenal job for the soundtrack of this movie. It's so good, especially with This Is Halloween that plays at the beginning, another catchy song to hook the viewers in right at the very beginning. You have another song like What's This that is just really represents Jack's character, and he's just like new to everything in this Christmas town. His balance is just completely overthrown when he sees this beautiful Christmas town that he's never seen. It's beautiful, and the song really complements that. Then you have a very sad song, Jack's Lament, especially when his whole like destroy Christmas thing goes wrong, and he's just singing to himself about how he loathes everything. It's just very sad, and it's very relatable too, especially if you're going through like a rough patch in life, which I guess we all kind of are right now. Essentially, this movie for me is a 10 out of 10. This movie has everything I wanted from a Tim Burton animated movie. It's just all of his trademarks, and Danny Elfman doing the amazing score. I love it to death. For me, it's one of my favorite animated movies of all time, and it's easily like in my top 50 movies ever made. You're probably wondering, what can top this? Now, I've given this a lot of thought, and I want to say that Edward Scissorhands is in my top 10 movies of all time. This movie is an actual masterpiece. From everything, to the acting, to the music, to the visuals, everything is just so well made. It's just a complete masterpiece. Johnny Depp delivers the best performance he has ever delivered, in my opinion. He plays an amazing character who's just very shy and very awkward around people. That's because he has scissors for hands. Now, of course, his co-star Winona Ryder plays his love interest, and they just complement each other so well. It's one of the best love stories I've ever seen. This story is so moving, and it's so sad. After you're done, you want to rewatch it because the love story is so beautiful that you can't get enough of it. For me, those are the two main characters and main actors. I don't really want to talk about the other actors and characters. They're all right. The music is so nice. It really does set up this like dystopian world that they live in. There's this one scene where Edward is cutting giant ice sculptures, and it makes it snow, and Kim, Winona Ryder's character, is very impressed with him, and that's where they really fall in love. But the song they play is just incredible. I think it's playing right now. It's one of the best movies ever made. Of course, like I think to myself, like, who approves of this? Like, How can you come up to like a producer and say, hey, I'm making this story about a guy with scissors for hands, and everybody starts to like him, but then they start to hate him, and it's just phenomenal. Edward has an amazing character development. He goes from being this like awkward, shy dude with scissors for hands to being this like outspoken, comfortable with himself dude with scissors for hands. And again, Winona Ryder and Johnny Depp complement each other so well. It's just the story is one of the best love stories I've ever seen. I seriously cannot recommend this movie enough if you haven't seen it. This movie just changes the way you look at things, and it really puts into perspective that some people can be going through some really shitty times. It's really the main core message is don't judge a book by its cover, but it's just done so well that it's the best iteration of that message I've ever seen. So, that's the end. That is my top 10 Tim Burton movie list. Did you love it? Did you hate it? If you have any concerns or comments, put them down. If you don't agree, you can dislike the video. And if you do agree with me, like it if you want. That'd be great. I fucking love Tim Burton, man. His movies are executed so beautifully. He has this style that no one else has, and it's just every time I see one of his movies, I get a warm feeling in my heart that people can create such beautiful pieces of story and music there is. As well, you gotta give credit to Danny Elfman. His movies wouldn't be the same without him. Without his music, the movies would just be kind of dull. I know stuff is getting kind of crazy out there with coronavirus and the whole Black Lives Movement thing. I just want you all to stay safe, okay? Alright, thanks for watching.